I'm Jason with the All Things Open team. We're here with Katie. We're going to talk about open source policy issues, how they impact developers, and a bunch more. Welcome to the We Love Open Source studio, Katie. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you so much. My name is Katie Steen-James. I'm the Senior U.S. Policy Manager for the Open Source Initiative. I've been at OSI since February. Before that, my background is in policy and advocacy, and I've worked in the open access to research space, open science space. And at OSI, my role is to track policy issues that affect open source developers at the state and federal level, ultimately making sure that open source developers can continue doing their work. So I'm really excited to be with you today.
Great. Thanks for the work you do. You live in the policy world, which is totally bizarre and different from what a lot of people would probably expect and imagine. Can you describe to our community what it's like working with policymakers and some of the challenges that you face?
Yeah, definitely. So with policymakers, a lot of the support in what they do really comes from their staff. So be it congressional staff, if you're dealing with a member of Congress or even a state legislator, or agency staff also. So with congressional staff, you're really dealing with folks that are responsible for many different issues. So a lot of the time, they're going to know a little bit about a lot of different things spread across. And then on the agency side, that's where the deep expertise really is. And so depending on kind of who you're talking to, they may have a different understanding of open source. So really, and that can be both a challenge, but also a really kind of interesting way to do this work, which is why I really like it. So it all kind of comes down to meeting people where they are at with their open source knowledge. And like I said, if we're dealing with congressional staff, they're dealing with a ton of different issues. So that's going to be a little bit of a different approach. If you're dealing with agency staff, they may have deeper expertise or knowledge than, say, I do of certain software issues. So it's varied, but that's what I like about it.
All right. Well, what other things excite you about the open source policy? What also excites you about the working in the open source policy issues, and why is it important?
So as I mentioned before, I've been in this kind of openness space, and that's been a through line throughout my public policy, career that I've had. But in open source is kind of that other sphere of open that I hadn't worked directly in, but I recognized that it was important. As I've gotten more deeply into this space, realizing just how ubiquitous open source is to everything we do today, that's why I'm most excited about this work. I think most people kind of beyond the open source community don't necessarily realize just how much this technology is in our everyday lives. So I'm excited about getting to educate people about that, talk to them about the policy environment that we need to make sure that folks are still able to do this work and thrive in it. That's why I think it's really important.
Really cool. I love it. Well, how can developers engage with policy issues that probably a little bit out of their wheelhouse? Where do they even start, and how do they approach participating?
So that's a really good question, and that's actually exactly what I'm trying to do at the Open Source Initiative. At OSI, we didn't have a full-time policy person until they hired me in February, and then my counterpart in the European Union. And we're really trying to build out a program that allows developers to participate more. In a very basic sense, you can engage in the public comment period at the federal level and also at the state level. At the federal level, there's the Federal Register, which is essentially the journal of the U.S. government. That's where they're going to post public comment opportunities where you can submit your expertise. But also at OSI, we have the Open Policy Alliance, which started a few years ago. And it's really a group of like-minded nonprofit organizations, many of them code-producing foundations, but not all of them, that don't have a policy person in-house and are really trying to come together in a coalition to see where we can comment together. And my role is to keep that group updated. So I would suggest folks go to the OSI website, look for our blog area and our public policy area, because that's where I'm posting things that open source developers should know about related to policy and opportunities where they can comment.
Great. Sounds like a very open source thing to do.
Yes.
Do you have any trends or changes that you've seen affecting open source, either good or bad?
Yeah, so because with this current administration, we're not seeing a lot of interest in regulating at the federal level. There's been a lot more happening at the state level or proposals, especially around artificial intelligence. States wanting to regulate it. And it is potentially going to affect open source because most of these proposals aren't differentiating between a developer and a deployer. We also saw this initially in the conversations with the CRA and the European Union. So that's something that I've been tracking, wanting to make sure that if there's additional regulations put on AI systems, that they're not coming down upstream on open source developers. Some of the conversations have been, which is a concern, you have to be responsible as an open source developer for things that are happening downstream in an AI system that you're not deploying. So educating policymakers that the deployer and the developer are not always the same, they're not always the same entity, is really important.
Thank you. Do you have any new tools that you've been using to boost your own productivity?
It's a very good question. So I'm actually going to give a shout out to our intern that I had this summer. He's actually here at the conference because he's based in Durham, Gabriel Toscano. He is a public policy student at Duke. He actually wrote code that pulls all of the state and federal level policymakers based on your address. So you can basically just put in an address, be it a place of business, a nonprofit, your personal address, and then it'll pull, looking through all these public databases, the information that you need so you know who to contact. And I think that's really going to help me when I'm trying to make sure open source developers know who to talk to about issues, know who to talk to their elected officials. So I'm really excited to dive into that. And these are open or available sometimes, but they're typically behind a paywall. So to have him have written that code, it's going to be really helpful.
That sounds really cool. All right. Last question here before we get into the Hot Fix Minute. What's a tip, best practice, or do you have any career advice for the All Things Open community?
Yeah, so I think always, and I think the open source community is pretty good at this, but always wanting to ask questions or not being afraid to. I think some people see asking questions as kind of a negative or a weakness, but I really see it as a way to demonstrate how you think. Knowing the right questions to ask is a skill in and of itself. So that's something that I live by and has been helpful in my career, and I think is a good best practice.
Great stuff. All right, Katie, you ready for the Hot Fix Minute?
Yes, I'm ready.
All right, this will be fun. Linux, Mac, or Windows?
Oh, God.
Just the first thing that comes to mind.
Mac.
Books, movies, or podcasts?
Movies.
Pizza, salad, or tacos?
Pizza.
Rock, country, or hip hop?
Hip hop.
Star Wars, Star Trek, or stargazing?
Star Wars.
Android or iPhone?
iPhone.
ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini?
Neither. None.
The future of AI is helper bots or a robot takeover?
Hopefully helper bots.
All right. Thanks, Katie. You survived the Hot Fix Minute.
Perfect.
Thanks for your time today.
Thanks
Appreciate
so
it.
much. Nice
All
to
right.
meet you.
Thank you.